right? Jaya Radha Madhova Kanya Bihare Ramadhava Kanya Bihare Jaya Radha Madhova Kanya Bihare Janabanaba, Yidibaroda, Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatacharya also tell us to Shimad, His Divine Grace Sabaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Rem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaura Bhakta Vrindikajaya Shishi Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Akunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kijai Vrindavanam Kijai Maturadam Kijai Jagadasami Kijai Shrimati Lasi Devi Kijai Jai Samvita Bhakta Vrinda Kijai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pacharani, Nivashesha Shunyavadi Vasyati Deshatarni. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 24th chapter, text 31. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Shigu Vacha Kalatmana Bhagavata Shakra Darpa Jigangsaya Proktang Nishamya Nandadya Sadhu Agrinanta Tadvachaha Shishuguvacha Kalatmana Bhagavata Shakradarpa Jighangsaya Proktam Nishamya Nandadya Sadvrakrananta Tatvacha Shishugovacha Kalatmana Bhagavata Shakra Darpa Jigangsaya Proktam Nishamya Nandadya Sadvrakrinanta Tadvacha Shishugovacha Kalatmana Bhagavata Shakra Darpa Jigangsaya Proktam Nishamya Nandadya Sagarjakrinanta Tadvacha. Okay.
Sri Sukha Vacha
Ladies? Shri Shukavacha. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Kala Atmana, manifesting as the force of time. Bhagavata, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shakra, of Indra. Darpa, the pride. Jikhang Siha, with a desire to destroy. Proktam, what was spoken. Nishamya, hearing. Nanda Adaya, Nanda and the other elder coward men. Sadhu, as excellent. Agrinanta, they accepted. Tat Vacha, his words. So translation, Shukadeva Goswami said, Lord Krishna, who is himself powerful time, desired to destroy the false pride of Lord Indra. When Nanda and the other senior men of Vrindavan heard Sri Krishna's statement, they accepted his words as proper. So there's no purport by the followers of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. So what I'm going to do is read the commentaries of the Acharyas. How about that? So we can understand this better. If this was a section of the 10th canto that Prabhupada himself commented on, I wouldn't do that. That would be Maryada Vyatikrama, because Prabhupada has given us the compilation or the summary of all the Acharyas' commentaries. But in this particular case, because my godbrothers didn't comment on it, I will read the comments of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Sanatana Goswami, and maybe Jiva Goswami too. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this verse, which is interesting. Bhagavan, addressed as Kalatma, which means the force of destruction. And I'm going to, of course, speak a little bit about this. As we're going through the Acharya's commentaries. So this word Kalatma is actually a very interesting word, because you have Atma means the self, and Kala means time, right? So, of course, this is in reference, we can make a reference to Krishna's statement in the Gita, in the 11th chapter of the Gita, where Arjuna, I believe it's text 31 or 32, where Arjuna is actually bewildered, and he's asking Krishna, this is the universal form, of course, and he's asking Krishna, who are you? And Krishna says, Kala was me. I am the time, I'm the death. Another verse is, Mritu Sarva Haraschaham, I'm all devouring death. And Krishna reveals to Arjuna at this particular juncture that everyone except for you, the Pandavas, and a few others of course, are going to be killed. And I've already killed everybody, and you just have to take credit for it. And of course, this, another verse, spoken by Narada Muni, Kalena Sarvatra Gabirha Ranghasa. This time factor is very, very deep, and it's controlling everything within this material world. The nature of time, just like we have this principle of, entropy, and I'm not going to get into the details, and all sorts of things that disintegrate based upon time, the time factor. Things don't get better. Like your car doesn't get better with time, does it? It's not like that. It gets worse. And that's actually one of the reasons why we don't accept the so-called theory of evolution. Because according to what's called entropy, things tend to fall apart unless there is an injection of some design or intelligence or intelligent person, isn't it? Things fall apart. So the nature of this material world, the nature of the material energy, is that it tends to disintegrate rather than integrate. I mean, nobody has seen a person being formed or a machine being formed simply from scraps of metal. You can make an explosion at a junkyard, and it's not going to make something nice like a jet plane. It's just going to make things worse. So that's the force of destruction. And so this force of destruction, and actually this kalatma means other things too. This force of destruction, or understanding the force of destruction, then implicitly teaches us the lesson that we shouldn't be wasting any time. And this is one of Prahlad Maharaj's instructions in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, Komarama charet pragyo dharmam bhagavatang iha. Durlabha manusha janma tar av dhruvam artadam. He says, you better take up Krishna consciousness right away to his friends. Komara, from the time you're a little kid. Acharet, that means, the word acharet in Sanskrit is an imperative word. That means you gotta do it. It's not that you can do it, you should do it, but you gotta do it. Acharet pragyo, to take it up. And there's dharma, this Bhagavad Dharma. Why? Because you may say, oh, there's so much time I have. Well, Komara Acharet Pragyo. But then, Durlabha Manasa Janma, you may lose your opportunity. You can die at any minute. And then you lose your opportunity for human birth. Tadapdruvamartadam, it's very valuable. So anyway, so this time factor is very much emphasized in many places in Srila Prabhupada's books. And in addition, Kalatma can refer to, actually it's very interesting, Kala also pronounced a little bit differently, it's either Kala or Kala, can refer to black. So Krishna is blackish, and he's Kalayati, which is the most attractive person in the universe. So there's two ways to understand this. The Acharyas are going to talk about this. It's not my speculation. So Kalatma, the force of destruction, indicates that he would destroy the sacrifice to Indra. Hearing the words of the Lord, Kalatma, who desired to destroy the pride of Indra, Nanda and the coward men accepted his proposal. So that Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur. And so Jiva Goswami comments, Krishna, who sets time in motion, upon whom everyone is dependent, spoke. Because everyone is dependent on him, they accepted his words. Or because he is so powerful, he made Indra's pride insignificant. Or when sacrifice for Indra is performed, Krishna sets that sacrifice in motion. That's another point. That even if you perform sacrifice for Indra, you have to preface that sacrifice with Om. All the Vedic mantras start with Om. Just like if you take the Rig Veda, most of the mantras are actually meant for worshiping Indra. It's quite interesting. So one may say that that means that Indra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But that's not an indication, simply the number of mantras. It's simply an indication that for people in this world, Indra is perhaps very important. Why is he very important? Because in traditional society, people lived in the villages. This is an interesting point too, that because we live in the city, we're more inclined not to worship God or demigods. And therefore we have this atheism. You know, we get our electricity provided to us, we get the water provided to us by the, whatever you have, the council here or something like that. You get the food provided for you from the supermarkets. It's like one time I was in Fiji. Where was I? I think Pastor Bihari was with me. Anyway, I think we were, either Savu or somewhere. And we were supposed to catch a plane. And it was time for breakfast, and the plane was delayed by 2 or 3 hours. And so what happened is the devotee said, "Oh, sorry, there's no breakfast for you." Because it's Sunday, all the stores are closed. You understand? Stores are closed, so there's no food available. I think, it was Tavayuni, actually. It was Tavayuni, yeah, I remember. So then I pointed out to the devotee, and this is Fiji. I said, "What's that tree called?" They said, "It's a banana tree." I said, "What grows on it?" "Bananas." And I said, "Get one." And then what's that tree called? "Papaya." "What grows on it?" "Papayas." "Get me one." And then we're actually on the beach, and there were some nut trees there. Were you there at that time? No, I don't think you were there. It was Tavayuni. And so they got nuts, and I had a fantastic breakfast. And we never went to the supermarket. So because we're so dependent on modern conveniences, therefore there's the tendency to neglect the worship of God or demigods, or neglect the point that we're dependent on them. Therefore you find even in so-called primitive societies, they're actually worshiping the sun, the moon, and especially rain. Why rain? The god of rain? Because without rain, there's no grains. Krishna points this out in the Bhagavad Gita. Sacrifice. You're dependent on the rain. It's not that you could just pump water with your artificial pumps from the ground, but you're dependent on either Indra or Greek mythology. You have Zeus. You know who Zeus is? No. Anyway, some of you have never studied these things. You're very unfortunate. Your mind hasn't been contaminated like my mind with all this other useless knowledge. So you have Zeus is actually, it's interesting, if you look at all the mythological, of course the Vedas are not mythological, but if you look at all the cultures around the world where they worshipped demigods, generally it was the demigod of rain and thunder and lightning. It's interesting, isn't it? He was considered, like Zeus in Greek mythology, was considered the head of all the demigods. It's interesting, because the importance of rain. Therefore, you have in the Rig Veda, the majority of mantras are for Indra. However, also in the Rig Veda, There's Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Pada Pashanti Yat Surya. There's the statement that all the demigods, they're actually worshipping and looking to Vishnu. And also, you have the pranava in front of all the mantras. Pranava sarva vedeshu shabda ke purusham rishu, which is the omkara. And the omkara, or pronounced probably omkara, that's the right way to pronounce it. Most devotees don't pronounce it, probably go om. The Omkar is actually Radha and Krishna. It's another way of saying the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Did you know that? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that. So people are being tricked. They're worshipping Indra with the whole idea of getting enough rain, which is why Nanda Maharaj and the residents of Vrindavan are planning to worship, or were planning to worship Indra, because they're dependent on the rain, isn't it? So that's the advantage of being in a simple culture, simple living, high thinking, that you understand your dependence on God, dependence on demigods, and that's a step up from modern culture where there's so many atheists in modern culture. So anyway, it says, when sacrifice for Indra is performed, Krishna sets that sacrifice in motion. And now he stopped it. By his desire is another statement. Everything happens. Or as Prabhupada would sometimes quote, not a blade of grass happens without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I mean, sometimes we become very frustrated when we can't make a change in things. Just like sometimes I come here to Fiji, we were talking about this on the way, that there's many things I'd like to change here, but there's this thing called people that are in the way. And so we try our best, and then if it doesn't happen, it's Krishna. That's all. Man proposes, God disposes. So we try our best and we don't get frustrated, because Krishna has his desire. We were also quoting this interesting verse this morning, and not from the Vedic literatures, that someone was asking me, why isn't there any justice? There appears to be injustice in society, and also injustice sometimes in the Krishna conscious movement. So I quoted this one verse, the wheels of justice turn very slowly but surely. Anyone's heard that before? So you just got to be patient. And Krishna takes care of everything. So we have to have that dependence on Krishna. We try our best and we leave the rest up to Krishna. That's all we can do. Who can oppose his desire? Oh, here's the statement. Or Krishna, who has a black kala body, spoke. He controls everyone by his beauty. What to speak of using his words? This is a very beautiful statement. Because Krishna, the word Krishna means Krishna. Krish means to attract, right? Na means to give you bliss. Krishna, or it's short for Ananda. Just like you have this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishi Gaurakshavani Jan Vaishya Karma Swabhavaja. Does anyone know what that means? That's a description of the qualities of a Vaishya. Why the word Krishi? Because a Vaishya is pulling things. He's not using a tractor. Although a tractor is the same thing, isn't it? Tractor means to pull. Attract. In English you have that word, attract, and from that word comes tractor. And so, in the traditional Vedic society, they'd be using a bull to plow the land. So, Krishi Goraksha Vanijam, Vaishya Karma Svabhavajam. So, Krishna's name means all attractive. So kalayati means the whole world. Krishna's nature is to attract the whole world. Beautiful statement, kalayati. Thus it is not surprising that they have accepted his words. Though Indra was worshipped, his pride was most disrespectful, since he saw the cowards as material and saw Krishna as a material being in relationship to them. Then, Aho Shimada Mahatmyam Gopanam Kananakasam Krishnam Arjam Upasracha Ye Chakrudeva Helanam. So this is a quote from the Bhagavatam, actually. Earlier in this particular, later in this particular chapter. Just see how these coward men living in the forest have become greatly intoxicated by their prosperity. They have surrendered to an ordinary, this next chapter actually, ordinary human being, Krishna, and thus they've offended us, the gods. It's false pride. Because Krishna knew this, he wanted to curb his pride. It is said that Indra became angry. If he had no pride, he would not have become angry, but would have shown fear. And that's actually really important too. Why do we become angry? Well, several reasons we become angry. One is because our lust is unsatiated. We can't satisfy it. Avritam Gyanamaytena Ganino Nijrina Kamarumina Kontia Dushbrain Elena Cha. Jayato Vishak Pupsam Sangostesha Vajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Krota Vijayate. When we contemplate sense objects, we become attached to them. When we become attached to them, we become lusty. And when we become lusty, we become angry. That whole scenario presented in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's one reason, because we're trying to enjoy something and it doesn't give us enjoyment, or we can't possess it. Another reason is we're trying to enjoy our position. We're proud of our position. And Krishna is teaching us that we're not the controller. That happens to us all the time. Then we become angry. So if you see someone getting angry, it's due to one of those reasons. Of course, you better not tell them that, because that'll be dangerous. Upadesho vimorkanam prakopaya nashanti. Does anyone know what that verse means? If you tell a foolish person or give a foolish person instruction, it makes him angrier. So when you see someone get angry, don't give them instructions. Just say, yes, Prabhu. You're right, Prabhu. Please have my obeisances. Because it doesn't work. So anger is a sign. Unless one is angry at someone because they want to correct them, and that's the only way to correct them. But that is the prerogative of the spiritual master, or Siksha or Diksha Guru. That is not the prerogative of anyone else. That's really important. So anger is a sign of the mode of ignorance, the sign of protecting your false ego. I'm sure none of you experience anger, ever. Anyway, it's a big problem. If he had no pride, he would not have become angry, but would have shown fear, because he understood that Krishna is Kala Atma, the self of time, the personification of time. And because of that anger, he wanted to create lots of trouble for the cowards. And that was... Okay, next is Sanatana Goswami. It's really interesting hearing from the Acharyas with these particular verses. Krishna, who sets time in motion, upon whom everyone is dependent, spoke. Because everyone was dependent on him, they accepted his words. And because he was so powerful, he made Indra's pride insignificant. Or when sacrifice for Indra is performed, Krishna sets it, whether we heard that already, the same thing. And now he stopped. By his desire, everything happens. Who can oppose his desire? And that's pretty much repetitive of the whole thing. Also, he says here that Kalayati, which means Krishna who attracts the whole world, shows his sweetness. So even the word Kalatma means Krishna is sweet. They accepted the words of Vacha of Krishna, who is most affectionate and dear, which had the highest meaning sadhu. Or they agreed, in other words, there's more definitions to the word sadhu, and said, very good, sadhu. Or they accepted his words wonderfully with great enthusiasm and affection, sadhu. So these are the commentaries of the acharyas. Anyone have any questions? Interesting analysis of the acharyas, isn't it? So, who has some questions? Must be Hari has some questions. So we can elaborate. Yes, Anjana. Well, what's that? In anger can be used in Krishna consciousness? Yes, but you were not Arjuna and you were not Hanuman. And you were not Durvasa Muni either. Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krota Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Pashta Vegam. And even when Prabhupada, that's a Kshatriya's business. I don't think you're a Kshatriya. Look like a Brahmin to me. You're too thin to be a Kshatriya. There's no muscles. So you're poor. You look like Sudama Brahmin, basically. Poor Krishna blessed him. So, Vacho Vegam Manasa Krota Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Pashta Vegam. Especially when dealing with devotees. When Prabhupada exhibited anger, he wasn't controlled by anger. What is the difference between someone who's controlled by anger and someone who is using anger in Krishna's service? If someone is controlled by anger, it takes them 3 days to calm down. I'm exaggerating. They're just like, it's just like you can't talk to them for another 2 hours at least. Right? It's just, I'm angry. Don't talk to me right now. And they stomp out of the room. But Prabhupada, when he got angry, he would just blast someone, and the next minute, this sweet as pie. Hard as a thunderbolt, soft as a rose. That's a difference. Prabhupada was never controlled by anger. He used it as an instrument. Now, of course, you have Bhimsen, but he's not a Brahmin. Bhimsen, when he was dealing with was Kichika. You know the story of Kichika? That he was killing Kichika. He didn't just kill him. He pounded his body so much that it looked like it's just a ball of flesh. You couldn't see where the arms are, the legs were, the head was. I mean, that's anger. So we don't want devotees like Bhimsen. I mean, we have nice devotees named Bhimsen, but we don't want devotees like that. So that's the point, uncontrolled anger, but anger can be used in certain circumstances. But one has to be very, very careful and not be controlled by anger. That's why Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krota Vegam. One has to. So how does one control anger? That's actually very interesting. Because naturally, when things happen that we don't want, or let's say in my position, that people don't listen to you. We were having a discussion with Sanatan about this. No, he listens to me, don't worry. He's very good. But we were talking about sometimes Fiji management. And I was thinking, so how do you control your anger? It's really interesting. Well, through the use of intelligence. You think, is this productive to serving Krishna? Would my spiritual master be pleased with me getting angry right now? Will it bring people closer to Krishna? Will it accomplish my purpose? One has to function on the platform of buddhi, or intelligence. This means to think. Anger is an instrument. It's like a knife. Knife is not bad when it's used to cut vegetables. But when it's used to cut people, it's very bad. So we have no problem with knives. We have a problem with the way knives are used. So you just think, is this an appropriate instrument? I'm a servant of Krishna. That's my identity. And based on that, you can apply or not apply something. Will it be productive? I mean, I've had times when, I definitely, honestly did get angry and it wasn't productive. So I learned my lesson. So, anyway, you're a Brahmin. Sama dhamma tapakshocham shantirajvameva cha Jnanavigyanamastikhyam brahma karma svabhavajam. Om shanti shanti shanti. Sama, equipoise. Happiness, distress, pleasure, pain. Dhamma, self-control, sense control. Tapakshocham. Another way to conquer anger is don't eat too much. If you eat too much, what's it? Kroda Vega. Anyway, so you have all these pushings, the Manas Kroda Vega. You eat, and Jiva Vegam, Udara Pashta Vegam. Then you get angrier, lustier. So that's another way to come. But the interesting thing is, all right, here's another point, is that even you may be a Brahmin, if you're engaged in management, sometimes there has to be use of little anger. But the anger has to be applied like a doctor applies his knife, with great caution. So does that answer your question? You seem to have more questions from your face, I can see that. You're not satisfied.
What about if someone blasphemes the devotee of the society?
What I've experienced is just leave the situation. I haven't really experienced too much productive results from getting angry with the person and yelling it back at them. I'll tell you a funny story I heard yesterday. This is really interesting. It's a story told by Radha Govinda Maharaj. I thought this was one of the most funny stories that illustrates when to get angry. So, once upon a time, this is before he met Prabhupada. Some of you may have heard the story. Gokul Bandhu told me the story yesterday, and I actually heard it directly. He played it on the internet. So, before he met Srila Prabhupada, he met Prabhupada in one particular place and was very impressed with Prabhupada. Oh, he's my guru. So then he's thinking, where is Prabhupada gone? Prabhupada left that particular place and he wanted to see Prabhupada again. So I think Prabhupada was in Gorakhpur. So he went there and he went to where Prabhupada was staying, but nobody was around. He saw no devotees, and there was just who he considered to be an older gentleman in the room, of Prabhupada's room. So he goes up to this older gentleman, and he says, and the older gentleman is actually Prabhupada. He didn't know that. He didn't realize or recognize it was Prabhupada. So he goes up to the older gentleman, who he thought was an older gentleman, was actually Prabhupada, and he says, basically, where's Prabhupada? and Prabhupada says, why do you want to see him? Prabhupada was very humorous like that. He said, why do you want to see him? And he said, because he's my guru. And Prabhupada said, why is he your guru? And he said, because he teaches that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada said something, where'd you get that information from? He said, from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Prabhupada said, no, Lord Chaitanya is not God. He's actually just a devotee. And then the Radha Govinda Maharaj said, no, it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's the Supreme Personality of God and appearing as a devotee. And then Prabhupada said, no, he's just an ordinary devotee. And then Radha Govinda Maharaj said, basically, Tuparo. Literally, he said, shut up. He got angry at Prabhupada. Prabhupada was playing with him. And Prabhupada just started laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. So there's an instance of a disciple insulting the guru when it was bona fide. He was laughing and laughing and laughing. And then some devotees came into the room and offered obeisance and says, Jai Shri Prabhupada. So then he realized it was Prabhupada. And he just fell down, was crying, Prabhupada, forgive me, forgive me. Prabhupada said, no, it's very, very nice. I'm very pleased with you. So the guru was testing the disciple, and that anger was appropriate. You know, someone says something like that. And you could defeat them. But generally my experience is just to leave the place. I mean, if you could defeat them and they're ready to accept Shastric argument, however, in Kali Yuga, people don't surrender because you've defeated them philosophically. They're just like intent upon winning the argument. So I just like leave, okay, goodbye. I mean, there's other things you could do, like you're not supposed to cut their tongue out. Don't do that. But, you know, just basically leave. I mean, getting angry at people who are blasphemous is good, but we don't yell at them because it doesn't do any good. All right? Does that answer your question? Sama, dhamma, dapat chocham. Be equal poised.
What about, like, if you get angry, just keep your mouth shut? Is it good?
Well, then you may explode. It's not a good idea. I mean, repression and suppression are not very good ideas. So I would leave this situation. I would just not sit there. It's actually quite dangerous. So, but actually anger is usually a manifestation, in this world it's usually a manifestation of frustration, not being respected, thinking you're better than other people. That's another problem. You get angry. You know, in India it happens because of this caste consciousness. Like if a Shudra happens to step on your shadow or something like that, they get angry. This is like, why? Is it productive? I mean, just like I gave the example when I first came here, when I was, anyway, my flight was delayed. It took, actually, we spent 5 hours on the airplane that never took off. Not the flight to Fiji, but the flight to Australia. It never took off. And then I had to spend the whole night in the airport, sleeping on the benches in the airport, and people were really angry. But I was thinking, what good does anger do? You have to see Krishna behind everything. Rather than get frustrated, just thinking, Krishna's made this arrangement. How can I best be Krishna conscious in this arrangement? And then I pulled out my book. You know, I have all Prabhupada's books right here. And I read Prabhupada's books and spent the night in the airport in bliss. So you have a choice. Your choice is to get angry or be in bliss. So Indra had a choice. He got angry because he wasn't being respected, Or he could have just been in bliss. Oh, isn't that cute, Krishna, you know? So we choose. Things don't happen the way we want. You're not the supreme controller. So there's, instead, just see Krishna. Yomam pasati sarvatra sarvam jamai pasati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. If you do that, you'll never be lost. You'll always be happy. It's Krishna. It's nice, isn't it? Krishna, why did Krishna, Krishna made me wait so long to spend the night in the airport? Because Krishna wants me to be a little humble. I saw it as Krishna teaching me a lesson. What was the lesson? Because I'm so much, I don't want to use the word addicted, I almost did, to technology. I think I can control the whole world with my mobile phone. I can text people, call people anywhere in the world, make plane reservations, chastise devotees. No, I'm sorry. I never chastise devotees. Isn't it? Give instructions, sorry. Give instructions to devotees, everything for you feel, technology does that to you. That's the difference. Living in a rural culture, which I mentioned before, you actually become dependent on God and the environment and even the demigods. I mean, that's a step up, as I mentioned. But using this technology, it gives you like a sense that you have a superpower, right? And you become more impatient, demanding. Just like I remember one time in the past, it was raining a lot, not here, somewhere else, and I was trying to do some construction to build a temple. And it kept raining and raining and raining. And this is when I was young, don't worry. Hasn't happened recently. And I got frustrated and more frustrated and more frustrated because I couldn't stop the rain. So finally, I hate to admit this, I hate to admit my own faults. So I was only 29 years old, so it's okay. 29-year-old sannyasi you can be in Maya. So finally, I just got so angry, I started cursing Indra. And even I did something so stupid. I took a stone and I threw a stone in the air. Damn you, Indra, Completely unproductive. I'm sure it didn't impress Indra at all. So this is what anger does. Instead, and modern technology, money, Janma Ishvarya Shrutashrashibir, having any opulence like this. Like Prabhupada said, if you go or get a position, Prabhupada gave the example, if you go to Lanka, you'll become Ravan. You understand? So if you get a position, or you get power, either through technology or through position, then the demoniac qualities can rise up unless you're very, very careful. That's why living in a natural environment is so healthy. Isn't it? Simple living, high thinking. Because you know your dependence and you can't do anything about the rain. There's nothing you can do. So, is that all right? You have more questions about anger? Jagai and Madai? Because a devotee was offended and he had the ability to chop their heads off. But we don't have the ability. And had he chopped the heads off with his chakra of Jagai Madai, which he didn't do, obviously, they would have gotten liberated. So the Lord's anger is compassion. It's a little bit different. When the Lord kills one, they get liberated? That question was raised in the beginning of the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, isn't it? By Parikshit Maharaj. He said, it appears that the Lord is partial. Because, Pritranaya Saranam, Vinashaya Jadushkratam. He kills the demons. And then Shukadev Goswami explains that the Lord is completely impartial. Because he doesn't need anything. So, with us, we get angry because we're not the supreme controller. But Krishna already is the supreme controller. Nothing happens outside of his desire. So he doesn't get angry because he's frustrated. Isn't it? He's frustrated because not enough to eat? No. Krishna has, what? Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambrahmase Vimanam. He has so many Lakshmis cooking for him. We get frustrated if one lady doesn't cook properly for us. I was going to say Lakshmi, but you ladies not. And then I was thinking of saying Durga, but that's not appropriate. So, but Krishna is the controller. So the sources of anger that we have are not Krishna's sources of anger. Krishna's anger is there because of compassion. His wanting to kill Jagai and Madai was for their benefit because they had offended Lord Nityananda. Madai in particular had offended Lord Nityananda. So that's a little bit different. You can't equate your anger. Our anger is due to frustration, either because we're not getting respected, or it's because we don't get what we want, and we really want it. I can think of the example of Urvasi. Urvasi really wanted Arjuna, right? You know the story from the Mahabharata? And he was more sex-controlled. He said, Mataji. That's why we say everybody, Mataji, Mataji. And she got angry. And she cursed him. He said, I can't have you. No one will have you. And that worked to Arjuna's favor when he became Rihan Nala in the Mahabharata. So that's anger due to frustration. So we should understand, generally our anger is due to frustration. Because we're not getting respected, or people don't listen to us, or Indra didn't stop the rain when I wanted him to stop the rain, or because that was why my plane didn't take off, because of the thunderstorm. So I didn't get angry at Indra that time. It just Krishna. It's Krishna's arrangement. So that's how you conquer it. Anger, by understanding Krishna's arrangement. Or, as they say in the Serenity Prayer, you understand the difference between the things you can change and the things you can't change. And the things you can't change, you don't get upset about. And the things you can change, you do. You still satisfied yet? Or no? Okay, that's good. Shanta. So, Rasvihari, you have a question?
Some of the commentaries by Acharyas on the ego is lust and greed.
Yeah.
They're saying that among the three, the two you are getting some benefit. The lust and the greed. But with anger, it's always destruction. There's nothing.
It's destruction. Because the point is, anger is in the mode of ignorance. Lust, greed, or passion. Mixed. You've got passion there. I want this, I want this, I want this. Or lust, I want to enjoy you or exploit you. But anger is just like destruction. And that, of course, is under the jurisdiction of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is in charge of that. Wherever there's anger, material anger, then Lord Shiva becomes manifest. The Rudra, it's called the Rudra principle. So someone should not say when they get angry, I'm just manifesting Lord Shiva for you. Om Namo Shivaya, Shivaya. So, another question or comment? Yes. Yeah. Can you speak louder? Because a disciple is planning to take Brahman initiation. What causes the disciple to what?
What qualities should the disciple have and the spiritual master seeing the disciple? What qualities should they have?
Well, motive goodness qualities is mentioned in the Gita, which is the verse that I was just quoting for Anjana Sutta. The main thing, okay, the main way to become like that is to accept everything favorable for serving Krishna and reject everything unfavorable. The two surrendering principles, the two principles of Sharanagati, right? That's the main thing. That's the main thing I look for. If someone is ready, wants to be Krishna conscious, and is ready to accept everything to please the Guru, regardless of his own feelings or her own feelings, and everything rejecting something that displeases Prabhupada, then that's all the other good qualities come from those two. So I don't expect people who take a second initiation to already have all the qualities of a Brahmin. Prabhupada said they develop the qualities of Brahmin. I mean, people, it's Kali Yuga. But people should develop the qualities of a Brahmin. Now, one of the reasons for developing the qualities of a Brahmin is that this will attract people to Krishna consciousness. Because if people see that a devotee is losing control of his or her senses, people will criticize the society, the Krishna conscious movement. So that's what I look for. People who accept the principle of accepting whatever is favorable and rejecting whatever is unfavorable. Does that answer the question? Okay. Thank you. Samadhamma kapachocham shanti marjuvadevacha yana vijnanamastikyam brahma karma sabhavajam. So, anybody else have any questions? Any of the ladies? Yes.
We take oath to take 16 mala every day.
Yeah.
Chant 16 mala every day. So can we chant a day friends chanting today?
Can we in advance?
So it was a question for everybody.
That's an interesting question. I once had, when I joined the movement, I asked that same question. I said, I'd like to chant all my rounds for the week in advance and the rest of the week not wake up early and do, Mangalarti for the whole week. And they said, yes, but then you just have to eat prasadam for the whole week too in advance. You can't eat the rest of the week. So, does that answer the question?
Answered my question, but prasadam and chanting is quite different things.
No, but I'm connecting them. They're two different things, but no, you cannot chant in advance. That doesn't work like that. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. It has to be done every day. It's just like saying another example is because when we chant, what? Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadvagni Devapanam, we're cleansing the heart. Okay. So when you take a bath, what are you doing? You're cleansing your body. So you just take a bath once a week? Is that your proposal? Once a week? I mean, it reminds me when I visited France before I became a devotee. Wait, let me ask you a question. When I visited France, before I became a devotee, I was traveling around the world trying to figure out what to do with my human form of life. So I went to France and I stayed at this hotel and I said, where's the bath or the shower? Because they didn't have them in every room. So they said, usually people just, not during the winter, they don't take baths. So anyway, I said, do you have a bath or a bathtub or something. And they said, yes, it's downstairs. So I went all the way down to the basement. Turned on, the water was rusty. It hadn't been used for a long time. So we don't want to follow that particular procedure. That's actually, incidentally, for you ladies, that's where perfume came from. Because they would just because during the winter they wouldn't take a bath. It was just too cold. So in the same way, we're getting dirty every day. Why are we getting dirty? Because of akarnam guna sangasha sadasad janma jonishu. Naturally, being in this world, we're associating with the modes of nature one way or other. You know, we're going out there, we're seeing this, we're contacting some other people. And so it requires that every day, and the heart is so dirty anyway, through many, many lifetimes within this material world, that a lot of cleaning is necessary. You clean your clothes every day, hopefully you bathe every day, hopefully more than once a day. You know, so it's the same thing with chanting. That's why we do it not only every day, kirtaniya siddhari. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is go, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And I try, the last thing I do before I take rest at night is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Or I read Bhagavad Gita. Because the mind is like that. You know, the mind has to be controlled by transcendental sound. So that's why we don't chant for the whole week. That's why we don't bathe for the whole week. About that. Okay? Otherwise, you know, we can be like, have a work week too, like 5 days a week we work, and then on the holiday, no Hare Krishna. So, any other questions or comments? Interesting questions. Yes, Hamsi.
Maharaj mentioned in today's lecture that you were waiting in the airport for 2 years.
No, 5 hours in the airplane when it didn't take off, and then I was told we're not taking off. Yeah.
And nothing to eat there. And you tell that you go to bring banana, cocoa.
I'm more intelligent than that. I bring food with me.
So when nature provides all the things,
What?
when nature provides all the things to survive ourselves.
Yeah.
So people want why they work for 8 hours whole day. Why they work? Nature provides all the things.
Why? Because they're greedy. Why do people work? Well, no, actually because we're practical. We live in the material world too. And we're here, we're preaching Krishna consciousness, so we accept this austerity. Like Prabhupada was living very nicely in Vrindavan, but he accepted more for the service of Krishna, like the 2 principles of surrender, accepting everything favorable, rejecting everything unfavorable. So, yukta vairagya. You know, if it wasn't, actually this is one thing, before I joined the movement, I was living on a farm, living more or less very simply. But when I joined the movement, my life became much more complex. And I accepted that to serve Krishna. So that's the reason why, for me at least, I've accepted the complexity. Other people, because they may want more than they need. Right? I mean, you're never satisfied with anything in this material world, isn't it? Abritam jnana metena jnani no nichivayana kama rupena kontiya dushparena lenacha. You're never satisfied. You want more and more and more. I mean, you see some of these people with big houses, such big houses. There's like 100 rooms, some mansions, some of these Bollywood, Hollywood stars. And how many rooms can you sleep in every night? People are so lusty. lusty. They're not satisfied. Just like in the place where we're staying here in Isoso, there's a TV show being produced in one of the houses, and anyway, it's based on lust. They call it love. It's called Love Island, anyway. So I was walking on the beach, I happened to walk there. I just said, get away, it's not for you. I said, what's happening? And I looked it up. So anyway, yeah, people just overcome by lust in this world. And if they can't enjoy lust themselves, then they will enjoy vicariously. That means they enjoy by watching someone else be lusty. Right? That's called vicarious enjoyment. So that's why you have all these Bollywood films. Right? Bollywood films, just lust, love, and the ladies are watching it and crying because their whole life has been so frustrating they couldn't find their eternal love. Not understanding that their eternal love is Krishna, not some man. You stay with your husband, but he's not your eternal love. Your eternal love is on the altar. So because we're frustrated and we're trying, through all these different arrangements, therefore we actually watch these, not me, I don't watch them. I'm using we in a sort of teaching sense. People watch these love stories because they themselves are not happy in their own loving exchanges. But because I am happy in my loving exchange with Prabhupada and Krishna, I don't watch love stories. I read about the love stories between Radha and Krishna. That satisfies me. So, so much frustration, isn't it? Modern society, so much frustration. Anger, frustration. Trying to control things. Getting angry when you're not controlling things. Horrible. Okay, I think it's time to take prasadam because I'm getting angry. So, can't eat hungry and angry. So, thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
We will have breakfast at 7 on this place.
Oh, really?
Street.
Okay.
Evening dinner at Prahlad Das in Vapaladu. Tomorrow morning we'll have breakfast at Pandu Das Prabhu's home. There won't be any morning lecture tomorrow.
So tomorrow morning, Pandu's house.
Yeah,
No lecture tomorrow, but midday we're having the program for Bhakti True Maharaj.
Yes.
It's his Vyasa Puja, so everyone please come. We're going to have Pushpanjali, and I'll be speaking about Bhakti True Maharaj, and other devotees can get the opportunity too. That'll be very nice. To honor a Vaishnava is the most wonderful activity. Krishna becomes more pleased when we honor Vaishnavas than when we honor Krishna directly.